500 miles.
Hello and welcome to Random Things. This is Ty, and today I'm doing a 500-mile check-in on the Jupiter Defiant. Now in today's video, I'd like to go over several things. First and foremost, and it's probably the most important issue, which is how is the motor and battery performing after 500 miles? Then I want to go over some of the little issues that I've encountered throughout the first 500 miles in terms of my experience with this bike. Some good, some not so good. So please keep watching to the end, and I'll see you again at the wrap-up. For this video segment, what I'd like to do is test the performance of the Defiant as we approach 500 miles. So as you can see, I have about 473 miles on the Defiant. So I'm going to take this on my bike ride to work, which is about 20 miles, which will get me pretty close to 500 mile mark. I'm going to ride this at pedal assist probably 3 and 4 and some 5, and we'll get a gauge as to how well the battery does on this ride. So pedal, you can get good steady current, jumps up a little bit from 2 to 3. Okay, hit the river trail now. I don't know if you can see that, but still decent current draw. I'm gonna bump it up to 5. In rush, come down. If I pedal, nearing the end of the ride. All right, I'm at my destination. 20 miles later, still got about battery's showing 4 bars, but it was 3 earlier. I'm guessing this is not as accurate, just like the XP. My guess is closer to less than 50%, but I certainly had juice left. I was still riding on pedal assist 5 all the way at the end, and so I was pretty happy to see these results still after 500 miles. Battery in the motor. Let's talk about some of the other issues I experienced with this bike during the first 500 miles. Now, first thing is, at one point when I had the bike, I actually lost power to the bike, and I didn't really understand why. At first I thought, because I was messing around with the key, I thought there may be something to do with the key. Turns out, when I was transporting it, when I folded it, this connector came apart. And when that comes apart, obviously the controller is not going to talk to the motor, and you lose control of the bike. So that was a relatively easy fix. I just plugged it back in. But then later on, I started experiencing some sluggishness on the bike, where the bike was kind of lunging forward and then losing power. And I didn't really understand why. When I checked things, everything looked kind of normal. What it turned out was this was slightly pulled out. It wasn't making the best connection, and I think it had to do with some bumps in riding and some folding. And so what you need to do is periodically check this connection and push it together and make sure it's nice and secure. Now it'd be nice if Jupiter came up with a locking mechanism to kind of hold that in place a little better. They use zip ties to kind of hold it in place. Obviously, as you can tell, the zip ties broke, and I had to add more zip ties to it to make sure it's secure. So you can do that to kind of help. The second issue that I had was with the derailleur protector, the derailleur guard. What can happen during shipping is the derailleur guard can come bent, and when it's bent, it will push against the derailleur, and it will actually prevent the derailleur from shifting. So when I first got this bike, and I unboxed it, put it together, turned on the controller, everything powered up, took it out for a spin, and it was wonderful. What I didn't really do is pay attention to the derailleur guard. So I want to show you a quick video of what can happen during shipping when the derailleur guard is bent. What can happen is, again, the derailleur guard is shifted or pulled inward. So you can see when it comes, it's in the first gear, which is fine, right? But now as you try to change it the lower gears, the derailleur will hit the guard and it won't shift anymore. And so when you first get the bike out of the box and you see that it pedals, and it pedals fine, especially with the power assist, you don't care. And that's kind of a mistake. You really do need to take the effort to actually check the derailleur guard in the derailleur to make sure that it is set correctly. It'll work for you correctly, or else you're gonna have a rude awakening when you really do need it. I just grabbed a couple of channel locks, and then if you grab it and you can actually pull down, you can see that you can bend the derailleur guard. So you just want to bend the derailleur guard out of the way so that the derailleur can shift without hitting the derailleur guard. And after that, you want to adjust it either with the limit screws and then the fine tuning screws so that it shifts correctly, and verify that. That way, when you're out there, you know that the bike will shift for you when you need it to. The next issue I have is a little bit ticky-tacky. One is the mud guard. It's a little hokey. I'm not sure it's really that necessary. In fact, most of the time, it kind of gets in the way. I don't ride through the mud or the water that often. But I don't know. That's up to you if you think you want to install it. The one problem I did have with the mud guard is when you put the guard in, it actually doesn't let you set the lights very well. At least I didn't have a very easy time doing it. And so most likely I am going to remove the mud guard so that actually I can control the lights a lot better. And I think again, the mud guards they're kind of hokey and they just kind of get in the way sometimes. So the taillights are activated through a little button underneath here, right? But when you pick up the bike and carry the bike, you can inadvertently hit these lights. Now, these are battery powered lights. And so if you forget and actually hit these lights in this daytime, you may not realize that you actually have activated the rear lights, and you actually will end up chewing up your battery. So that part of it is not the greatest. There's one more thing I'd like to show you, and that is the submenu on the Defiant. So you can get into the submenu on the Defiant by holding down the up and down buttons at the same time. And there you have the submenu. So right now I'm presuming it's saying that this is the upper limit, 26 miles per hour, 70 miles per hour, 28, 16, 18, 20, 24. And I think the bike comes at 26 miles an hour as standard. One thing to note is that I'm not sure it does anything other than it changes the ratio of, I guess, the speedometer, but I don't think you actually go any faster or any slower. At least I didn't try the 60 mile an hour. I did try the 28, and I did try the 70, but I certainly didn't feel like I was going 70 miles an hour. If you actually go into the manual from Jupiter, they actually say they will not support adjustments to the submenu. And so, although it's a cool thought that maybe you can get to 70 miles an hour, that just really isn't the case. So stay out of there. Thank you for watching all those segments. So let's recap. The biggest issue after 500 miles is whether or not the battery will recharge all the way, and how does that translate to motor performance. So as you can see, we were able to ride the bike at a relatively high speed in pedal assist 3, 4, and 5 for a relatively long distance, 20 miles, and at the end of that, we still had about 50% of the battery left. I call that a success. And that is a pretty good indication after 500 miles that your battery and motor are gonna do okay. So I'm really excited to keep riding this bike from that standpoint. Now about some of the other issues, well, the connector issue, that's really more of a pre-ride checklist that you should do periodically anyway. Just make sure all the connectors are pushed in and tight, and that way you won't have any electrical issues. In terms of the shipping issue with the derailleur guard hitting the derailleur, I've noticed that on the 2 Defiants that I do have when it first came to me, I have a couple of friends that have ordered a Defiant from Costco. They did not see that problem. So, looks like maybe I just have bad luck. Nonetheless, it's a good idea to check it out and just to make sure that your derailleur is going to shift correctly after you unbox it. That way, when you're out on the road and you run out of batteries, and occasionally you may, you'll know that your derailleur can shift properly and it will help a lot. In terms of some of the ticky-tacky issues, the lights and the fenders, take it for whatever it's worth. And lastly, the submenu. It doesn't seem to do what I think I was hoping for initially. And having said that, and that the manual says that they're not going to support it, I just suggest you stay out of there. So with that, I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, please hit the like button and share. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe and hit the notification button. That will really help me out. And you'll get notified of the next random video that I do. And then lastly, always remember to ride safe, and thank you for watching. Cheers.